This podcast is sponsored by Chimby, the career advice search engine. Go to chimby.com and search the web's best collection of career advice. That's CHIMBY.com. Welcome to Secrets of the Job Hunt, everyone. This is the podcast edition. I'm your host, Chris Russell. I have another career advice author for you today. My guest will be Hannah Seligson, author of the new book, New Girl on the Job, Advice from the Trenches. Hannah is a 2004 graduate of Brown University and is currently a freelance journalist. You may have seen some of her work in, I think, New York Times, among others. And she's also working on a second book, and she's on the line now. Hello, Hannah.
Hi, Chris. Actually, New York Post.
New York Post, I'm sorry. Okay. I knew it was one of the New York papers.
Yeah, one of the New York papers, exactly.
Gotcha. All right, so welcome. Welcome to the show. And, by the way, what's the second book going to be about?
The second book is going to be totally different than the career book. It's going to be about the rite of passage of a long-term relationship.
Ah, okay. Very good.
A very different topic than careers.
Gotcha. Okay, so let's talk about your new book. It's obviously it's targeted towards young women, but I'm curious what inspired you to write it.
Well, two things inspired me to write it. One, I saw that a lot of young women entering the workforce only went suit shopping to prepare them for the workforce, and that was not enough preparation. And second, I got fired from my first job, and I realized that there was no career guide out there for young women.
Right.
So I decided to write New Girl on the Job, which is different than most career guides because I did over 120 interviews, at 100 interviews with young women and about 24 interviews with women who've made it to the top of their fields. And I culled together their different perspectives and created what I hope is a canon of wisdom for young women starting out today.
Cool. All right, so what would you say is the biggest challenge women face in today's workplace?
I think some of the biggest challenge, I mean, there are many, but I think that the most sort of salient one is developing a thick skin, which means, learning not to take things personally.
Right.
And that's a big deviation from the academic environment where you come in and you kind of put your head down, you do what you're told, and there's not a lot of taking things personally. I mean, maybe you get a comment on a paper, but the workplace is a very different dynamic. And studies show this, that people who are successful in the workplace can sort of shut out all of the emotion, put their heads down, and just not take things so personally. And so
right.
It's a critical skill for young women and all young people to cultivate.
Yeah, did you learn to overcome that when you first got into the workforce? Does that come from experience?
I definitely had a learning curve with it. I took things personally and got upset, and I let that distract me from my job. But over working as a journalist and constantly getting feedback and having red marks on things, you're right, you have to learn not to take things personally, and that criticism is actually a very important part of moving forward in the workplace. And if you can integrate criticism, you're setting yourself up for success, because that's what employers want. They want to hear that you get it, you can integrate feedback and deliver a product they're looking for. Right.
Okay, cool. Now, I love the title of Chapter 7, which is, Why is She Being Such a Bitch? So talk a little bit about that chapter. What's that all about?
Well, originally I didn't even want to include the chapter in the book because there's been so much written about women in the workplace. I mean, there's been, a Bible written about it, so I didn't think that I had anything really unique to say about it.
Right.
In all of my interviews with young women, it kept coming up that they were working with either women of their same peer group or older women who were sabotaging them in the workplace. And unfortunately, we still have this dynamic that women don't help each other as much as men do.
Right.
They haven't tapped into that social capital. So I think we should take a lesson from men and bond together and try to help each other up the ladder instead of sabotaging each other.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, you have another chapter that deals with the female-male dynamic in the workplace. What are some of the biggest mistakes that women make dealing with their male counterparts in the workplace?
I think playing the flirt card, which is, dressing provocatively or using your sexuality to get ahead, is a big no-no, because
right.
Flirting is just not a career advancement strategy. So I would say that's sort of the cardinal rule. And I would also say that if you're in an environment where people are making offensive comments or there seems to be an undercurrent of sexism, get out, because it's not going to be an environment where you're going to succeed. And I know there's this school of thought that says, you shouldn't report sexual harassment because a lot of sexual harassment policies protect the employer as opposed to the employee, or you should, not take all these comments so seriously. I'm not really going to go there. What I am going to say is that you don't want to work in an environment where people are making those comments.
Right. Okay. And I was reading your last chapter talks about the future of young women. What do you think their future is in sort of this new economy that we're in, and particularly as it relates to raising a family? Because I know sometimes that's a big issue for some women.
Exactly, and I think we're at this very interesting watershed moment for young women in their careers, and they say by 2020, 1 in 5 powerful posts will be held by a woman. And there's a lot of discussion. I think this is what people are really eager to see, whether Gen Y, millennials, those born after 1979, will opt out, which is sort of in the storyline of Gen X.
Right.
My prediction is that young women are going to opt out of the traditional workforce and start working for themselves, and statistics bear this out as well. Because companies are not getting hit to the fact that women have nonlinear careers. They stop working, they have children, and they haven't been as progressive about adapting to the lifestyle of the 21st century woman. So I think women are going to go off and start their own literary agencies, their own private equity firms, and their own medical practices.
Yeah, I definitely think that, like I have a couple women work for me, and one of them's she's a stay-at-home mom. She wants something part-time that she could do from her house, and so I allowed her to do that. And I think there's a whole workforce of women out there that could do stuff for you, for a company, working from their house, or maybe coming in a couple days a week as a career. And I think they're untapped as far as the workforce goes.
Exactly. I mean, there are certain companies like Deloitte, American Express, certain law firms that are allowing sort of this flex time, but it's not as pervasive as it should be.
Right.
And I think that also a lot of women, and this is what my interviews revealed, find the traditional corporate, the structure of corporate America stifling, and it's patriarchal. I mean, what is it? 7% of Fortune 500 CEOs are women. I mean, it's not a culture that promotes literally women.
Right.
So we're going to create our own niche.
Yep, I definitely agree. Okay, we'll have a little fun with you now and play a little word association game, if I can.
Sure.
Okay, so I'm going to say a word or a phrase and just spit back first thing that comes into your mind, okay?
Okay.
All right, so let's see here. Dress code.
Dress code, professional, overly professional.
All right. Business casual.
Do you want me to explain why, or just...
Sure, go ahead.
Well, I would say, no one ever says, wow, Hannah, she was dressed too professionally. They would say, she's not dressed professionally enough. I think that especially as a young person going into the workforce, you should always err on the side of being overly professional, but means wearing a longer skirt, wearing pantyhose, not wearing open-toed shoes. It's just better not to give anyone a reason to disqualify you from a job.
Right, okay, cool. Okay, next one is business casual.
Business casual, very confusing.
Yes. Okay. How about casual Fridays?
Casual Fridays, again, always err on the side of overly professional.
All right. Entry level.
Entry level, paying your dues. Painful.
All right. Gen Y.
Gen Y, very exciting.
Okay. And bosses.
Bosses. It can be your worst nightmare, or it can help you up the ladder.
Gotcha. And last one, resumes.
Resumes. It's on nice paper.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, Hannah, we're out of time, but I want to thank you for your timely advice today. Again, the new book is called New Girl on the Job, Advice in the Trenches. It's in the bookstores now, right?
In the bookstores now. You can also get it off my website, which is www.hannahseligson.com.
All right, very good. And that's going to do it for this edition of Secrets of the Job Hunt. Stay tuned to secretsofthejobhunt.com for more interesting career podcasts, and be sure to read my blog with more than 600 pages of cool career advice. Thanks for listening, everyone.